Yes. All right, welcome to the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission meeting for October the 9th, 2023, 4:30 p.m. in council chambers. Our public involvement voluntary survey data collection statement will now be read. The City of Lawrenceburg is collecting and analyzing statistical information regarding demographics to assist in monitoring and ensuring non-discrimination in all of its programs and activities. The voluntary Title VI public involvement survey will be available at all public meetings, all public hearings and meetings. The survey will allow respondents to remain anonymous. Surveys are located in the back of the room, in that bin over there with the manila envelope. If you so wish to fill one of those out, you can, and then put that into the envelope, and we will get that to the correct person. I will go ahead and do a roll call. We have Executive Director Brian Messmore. Present. President Richard Richardson is present. Vice President Lenny Fryman.
Here.
Secretary Kevin Schaefer.
Present.
Members Janie Wilson and Brian Johnson are both absent. Lawrenceburg School Board member Aaron Shepard. Here. City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here.
All right. If we've had time to review the meeting minutes for our September 11th, 2023 meeting, I'll take a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Lenny, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Kevin, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any announcements this evening?
Sure.
If not, a financial report has been included in our packets. If anybody has any questions in regard to that, please get with Mr. Messmore or Ms. Hermish when she returns from her vacation. And we will move on to our new business. Tonight we've got Matt Frischie and Joe Paulus from Reedy Financial to provide us our TIF report.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Good afternoon, members of the commission. My name is Matt Frischie from Reedy Financial Group. I believe most of you have seen me up here before. Today I'm here to satisfy Lawrenceburg RDC's annual reporting requirement, presenting to overlapping taxing units their total TIF impact. So we have invited all overlapping units to attend this meeting on your guys' behalf. So essentially, I'll walk through this presentation and answer any questions that you guys may have. So without any further ado, I'll begin. Page 1 of the presentation, really just an outline of all the different reporting requirements that you guys as an RDC are required to complete. As you'll see, all the other reporting requirements we've already satisfied for the year, minus the prior to December 31st. We invite overlapping units and we present what is your guys' impact to overlapping units. So we'll cover kind of just assessed value information, revenue amounts, long-term kind of projects and plans that we're looking at, and then also, and then we'll dive down into the specific numbers behind the TIF impact, okay? So on the next page, you see a breakdown of the two different allocation areas that are under Lawrenceburg RDC's purview. So you see the downtown entertainment allocation area that was created back in 2010, has a current expiration date of pay year 2044. You'll see that is currently the only allocation area that we are capturing incremental assessed value on. As you guys know, we established that business corridor allocation area last year, which would mean that we would get the base assessment. So that means the base overlapping units still collect the value as of 1/1/22. The first year then that we look at for what is this new TIF going to collect is 1/1/23. So this year's values, when the assessor shot those through, we worked with those through the neutralization process to determine next year will be the first year that we will actually capture assessed value and then revenues from that new area, okay? So flipping on to the next page, really just wanted to include and like to include a graphical representation of how TIF works for those of us that aren't dealing with it on a daily basis. As you'll see, when a TIF is established, that base assessed value at the time of establishment, that always is going to go to the overlapping units. We're not trying to take any existing revenues or values from any of the overlapping units. So that's why we consider that base AV versus incremental AV. So then any new development done on those specific parcels in the allocation area, that is what drives our increment, any development that is done on those parcels after that establishment date. Typical life of a TIF is 25 years after the incurrence of the first debt that is payable by those revenues. So, which is why, like I said, the current main allocation area is set to expire pay year 2044, because when we established that area, there was a period of time before 2019, which is when we actually issued bonds that are payable by those TIF revenues. That started our 25-year clock, so that's why 2044 will be our final year with that allocation area. Right now, we do not have any debt outstanding on the new area, so right now there is no expiration of that area until the point, like I said, we were to say, okay, we want to start pledging these revenues to repayment of that debt. That would start our 25-year clock. At the end of the 25 years, as you'll see on the graph, all of the assessed value that we've kind of built up within this allocation area will then be released to the overlapping units and go back to the base. And really all that will do, and we'll kind of get into the numbers here in a minute, really all that will do, it won't necessarily increase any of the overlapping units collections. The main impact there is it's going to reduce the tax rate. Okay, and reduce circuit breaker impact on some of the overlapping units that they currently are experiencing. So you'll see here too, just a breakdown of kind of what drives incremental assessed value. So as you see, new construction will drive that incremental assessed value. If there's a current abatement that is rolling off, and then obviously new destruction, that obviously hurts the value that we've built up. Big point there is we're not capturing any value just because property values are increasing over time naturally, right? That through the process that we do in the August timeframe called neutralization, we make sure that, if values are trending, just trending up naturally, we're going to allocate those back to the base rather than saying that that's something that the RDC did or a new development that occurred, right? We're not going to capture that. So moving on to the next page, like I said, just a breakdown of kind of the beginning year balance, revenues and expenditures, and then your ending year balance. Right now, main projects, as we discussed, or as I kind of alluded to earlier, our main thing for the specific TIF funds that we're collecting are going to pay our debts, our two debts that the city has. That is the primary use of those funds. I know that some future plans in regards to potential riverfront project, maybe some funding of the Liberty Theater, and then also maybe some public safety expenditures. So, and really, there was new legislation that was passed this year that kind of opened up TIF funds to be used for public safety or as an allowable use of public safety. So I know there may be discussions of maybe helping out with a police station renovation or something along those lines. So now that is allowable within the use of TIF funds. Now, I will say that, Dell, if that is something that the city wants to look at, using some of these funds to help supplement a police station renovation or something like that, I did advise, Mayor, that we'd want to look at the economic development plan. I think we may need to amend it if we do plan to use those funds, because although legislation now allows us to use that, we still has to be outlined in the plan as an acceptable use. So I did take a quick look at it. I think there's some vague language about public safety, but it doesn't outline it as a specific project. So maybe something that we want to amend if we do plan to use those funds for that, okay? Moving on to the next page. So we're going to get down into the TIF impact, and really this TIF impacts question slide really just, like to think of it as, and I'm not going to read word for word here, really how we quantify a TIF impact. That's kind of the setup slide for the numbers piece we're about to get into. Essentially, we're going to assume, in order to compute what is your impact to overlapping units, how we do that is we say, hypothetically, let's assume that all of that development would have already occurred. Let's assume that as of tomorrow, we were to take all the assessed value you guys have in your allocation area and just put it back into the base units, right? Put all that value back into the base, what would happen to property taxes, revenues, rates, right? That's kind of how we take a hypothetical look at it, right? Because there's no real good way of quantifying specifically, you can make the argument that none of this development would have happened without the use or the incentive package of TIF, right? The city uses TIF to put back into the community and redevelop it. So would any of those developments occurred without the use of TIF? We're going to pass that question by and assume that they would have, and let's just release all this assessed value, what would happen. So if you turn to the next page, you'll really see a breakdown of the specific numbers. So it's important to realize that the numbers outlined on this chart are not additional revenue numbers, more so circuit breaker reduction amounts, okay? And by that I mean the way property taxes work in the state of Indiana, units are constrained on how much they can levy in a year. The state issues a state-approved growth quotient for next year, saying that for this year to next year, your levy can grow by a set percentage. So for instance, from this year to next year, the city of Lawrenceburg's levy can only, their max levy can only go up by 4%. That's a state mandated percent, okay? Which means that doesn't matter what our assessed value does, we can still only grow our revenues by 4%. So what I'm saying to you is, in this scenario, that $33 million of assessed value, if we were to just put that in Lawrenceburg's base, you still can only collect 4% more next year from a max levy perspective. So what that means is, even though all that assessed value is going into the base, all that's happening is your tax rate would be lowered, okay? So that's really important, just kind of how things work in the state of Indiana and the way taxes work, also compiled with the fact that we have a circuit breaker law that protects homeowners and different property classes from paying over a certain amount of their property tax bill. So you'll see here that all these numbers, so for instance, Lawrenceburg Civil City, the circuit breaker impact would be $107,475. So of the total impact, just over 50% of the total impact for all the overlapping units. We really like to show what are these units' budgets in that year, right? Because $107,000 to Betty Sue, that seems like a lot, but when you look at it as opposed to the $14.3 million budget that the city has, less than 1%. So really just want to put some context to some of those numbers, right? But adding up all of those circuit breaker impacts, you'll see that if all that assessed value were to be released, what would happen is overlapping units would share a $210,854 circuit breaker reduction. Alternatively, because all of that assessed value is within a TIF area, we're able to collect just over $1 million in 2023 TIF revenues. So that's $804,470 more than what the overlapping units would share on a circuit breaker reduction. Okay, so what we do there is just a simple math, just saying that 79 cents is kind of what we deem as your guys' TIF margin. So for every dollar that is collected within the RDC, 79 cents of that is created because that assessed value is in a TIF allocation area as opposed to outside a TIF allocation area. If we were to release it, 79 cents of every dollar would just poof, go away, because those units can't collect more, and because they can't collect more because of the growth quotient and the way the max levies work in the state of Indiana. So next page, I kind of talked through that one as we were kind of going over the chart. So like I said, the TIF margin, 79 cents. So $1,015,324 in TIF revenues are collected across all of the allocation areas, and in this case, just the main allocation area for this year. And 804 of that million is collected due to the use of TIF. So I know it's somewhat confusing. Welcome to Indiana, welcome to TIF, right? So I am here for any questions that you may have, but that would satisfy our annual reporting requirement, kind of outlining the specific impact of our use of TIF in the city of Lawrenceburg.
Does anyone have questions? Well, if not, Matt, pleasure as always.
As always, you know where to call me?
Thank you for coming down as well. If anybody does have questions, we'll get those to Kelly or
Yep.
Director Messmore, and then we can pass those on the chain to you all and try
Absolutely,
to receive an answer on that.
absolutely. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Be safe.
Thank you, will do. See you in a couple weeks.
Yes.
See you, Matt.
All right.
You guys be careful going home.
Yep, thank you.
We have no action other than to actually have that report done, so we've done that. Next, we have got the Low Miller proposal under Director Messmore. Director, would you give us some more information on that?
I will be happy to turn this over to Mr. Weldon for the most professional explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Messmore. So what we've done is, this is a brief resolution to adopt the proposal that Andrew Low-Miller and Low-Miller Real Estate submitted. So that's attached as Exhibit A, is what we had in our packets last week when Mr. Low-Miller was here and presented. So these are not all of the terms, but these are most of the terms, some general, some specific. You can see that he has minimum lot values broken down, the lots themselves, which lots are in question, as well as hourly funding for certain tasks. The main thing that isn't in this agreement that will appear later are the specifications for the buildings, so the building standards themselves, which is obviously a work in progress, but this authorizes Director Messmore to formally engage with Low-Miller to start to put more meat on the bones in terms of the specifics, beyond just authorizing them to market these lots for construction and ultimately sale.
Anybody have any questions for us in regard to this proposal?
And I would just say one last thing. So these are 5 lots. This authorizes Low-Miller to just kind of have exclusive control over them for the next 24 months. You'll see a clause in the resolution that limits this to 24 months, and then at that point we can reevaluate if any lots remain if they have not been developed. So, but it does have a timeline and contemplates this ending at some point if it doesn't come to fruition, but we have every faith that it will.
So as you're stating, Mr. Weldon, is the prices at anything, it's say somebody come to us and wanted to buy a lot, we refer them to Mr. Low-Miller now?
Yes. Well, he'll bring people to us, but vice versa is also true.
Okay.
So anyone who has interest in these 5 lots should contact Andrew Low-Miller, who will be representing us as provider of professional services to develop minimum building standards and to market to facilitate the construction of the house and the ultimate sale of the house, whether that occurs, whether the nexus is directly from Low-Miller to the ultimate user or through a builder and then the user, or through a developer and a builder and a user. That's where Mr. Low-Miller's professional experience comes into play. So he'll be able to make that happen, ultimately end up as a high-quality owner-occupied residential home, but he's going to get us from A to B, where we haven't had success doing that ourselves, just kind of generally marketing them. So that's why we're excited about the project.
Dell, will they be listed on the MLS?
We think so. One of the reasons that we're doing it this way as professional services and we didn't just, let's say, hire a realtor is, one, the statutes in Indiana don't really contemplate hiring a realtor. Only very few statutes in Indiana allow a governmental entity to just hire a realtor. Some specifically allow it, but most don't mention it, which the way I interpret statutes means that that's either not permitted or disfavored, for kind of obvious reasons. I mean, if you just we're not in the business of buying and selling property. I mean, that's not what's happened here. We've accumulated these lots because they were dilapidated properties, and we were able to purchase the property, demo the house, remediate the lot, get it ready for new construction, but we haven't done that just as a purely utilitarian buy and sell lots, make a commission effort. You know, that's not our goal. Our goal is to permanently beautify and improve downtown and Ludlow Hill by building structures that will stand the test of time, that are high quality, and that bring owner-occupied families to live here as residents, whether they're generational, they already live here and they're moving across the street, or they're moving in from out of town. So this is just a little bit different than hiring a realtor. But to answer your question more directly, I think because he has those same tools in his belt where he can put it on MLS after he's created the minimum building standards, it gives the widest swath of exposure. So that's just, a lot of check marks in the positive column in terms of what he can do. Low Miller also is a little different than a traditional bare bones realtor, just because they do provide building services and training, and they have these other parts of their business that we think will fit perfectly with this kind of project.
And if someone buys this property, they still get what is it that we give them? What do they
You
get?
can get 10% up to
10%.
$30,000
Yeah.
if you build a house that's $300,000 or more. 10% for a new home builder program, which is a grant we facilitate through Main Street. So yeah, you combine these efforts with other things that we already have existing. That's part of what you guys have been working so hard at all these years, is to build new homes, improve existing homes, build new businesses, improve existing businesses, and adding all those things together really gives us a tremendous bang for our buck. It helps families make it more affordable and practical, and really connects those dots, which is kind of our efforts. We don't ever want to be in the home building business, but if we can facilitate it on the front end and on the back end, then we're making it so that people can afford to build something, and that we add a permanent high quality structure to the city.
Did we decide on a time frame that they had to build the house? If they buy the lot, do they have to start, or do they have to complete the home in a certain period of time?
That's why I put in the 24-month total for the project, because we do want to give Mr. Low Miller and his group flexibility. So for example, that's going to be dependent on just the reality and practicality of turning a house around, beyond, he's going to have to draft the minimum building standards with Mr. Director Messmore's approval and supervision, and then figure out a way to get that out there, and again, connect the end buyer and user with the builder in the middle. And there are multiple routes from A to B. You kind of choose your own adventure. So whether maybe it's one developer building all of them in a similar theme, or a different builder on each lot, we don't have a preference. So we want to give him that flexibility. And so there's a 24-month overall cap, but it may take them longer than we thought, just to get the initial parameters out, and then quicker building, or short turnaround for the initial parameters and then longer building. So we do want to give them that flexibility without exceeding the overall 2-year time frame. So we thought that was most appropriate.
I like that. Does that extend beyond Low Miller? So he sells the lot, then we have somebody that owns the lot. Will we want them to build? Will we somehow require them to build in a certain period of time?
Yeah, what we're looking for is any lot that isn't done with someone living in it in 24 months, we want the opportunity to then take that back and explore different options. Again, we're hopeful that will be that all 5 will be gone by then, but yeah, that's exactly right, Kevin. We want to kind of have that opportunity to look at this again in 24 months, and any lots that aren't fully developed, and then that will allow, and then so what it says, so the Low Miller group is, okay, build whatever lead times you think are best to accomplish the goal, but understand that in 24 months, we do want a hard stop, and hopefully they're all gone by then. People are living in beautiful homes.
we need a motion?
This would be resolution number 2023-2, resolution to enter into an agreement to develop and sell real property and for professional services. We've all been given a copy of that resolution. And if we're in favor of it, I would take a motion to approve resolution 2023-2.
Yeah, I know we've wanted houses built on these lots for some time, so I'll make that motion.
We have a motion,
Yeah.
do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. You want to, Kevin, you want to pass that? Okay. If we've had a chance to review the claims that were provided for us, I'll take a motion to approve those.
I'll make that motion.
Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, aye? Any opposed? Motion carries. And I did want to mention, under old business, we have got a Main Street report that has been provided to us. So if we have any questions in regards to that, we can get that back to Michelle Cohn down at Main Street. But we continue to thank her for her efforts and what she does for us. And we have got comments from the audience. And if there are none, I will go ahead and take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Very well done.
I should have posed it just so we can stay.